Welcome in, everybody. This is 4th and Dynasty, coming at you a brand new show from Dynasty Pros. It's Brian and Cody here. Cody, how we doing today?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. It's been a weird winter so far with really no snow here in South Dakota. And I'm not going to complain about it because it is like 50 degrees today. So it's usually in the 20s, maybe 0 degrees during this time of year. So I appreciate this weather right now.
I was going to say, we're over here freezing in Virginia, about 40, 50 degrees. That's my chilly and cold.
Yeah,
so.
I was in short sleeves. I could be easily in shorts right now if I could.
Yeah, I'm excited for my 60s and 70s coming around. I'm pretty sure that groundhog, didn't it pop up the other day, tell us that winter's no more?
Yep, yeah, he did.
I also saw he's got like a less than 40% accuracy rating, so who the hell knows? Who knows? But yes, we will be bringing all sorts of Dynasty. If you're new to the Dynasty community, if you're old to the Dynasty community, we're going to be answering all those fun questions, breaking down the happenings that we're going to be seeing this offseason. This first episode, well, we've got to break into coaches because, what do we have, 8 coaches change up positions this year?
Yep.
We've got a Super Bowl right on the cusp. Does Mahomes get his third? Does Purdy get his first? I don't know. You excited about it?
I'm very excited about it. It's actually our first year of hosting, too, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Nice. Loaded up, snacks galore.
Snacks galore, wings galore, you know how it be.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's my least favorite part about being out on the East Coast for the Super Bowl is you have to wait so long. It kills me. Like, I'm usually pigged out and done eating by the kickoff because I've been eating all afternoon.
That's true. And, like, I was out on the West Coast one like a few years ago, and I was like, man, these games are starting at like 10 a.m. This is awesome.
It's the dream.
It really is the dream.
Getting a few things done around the house and kicking right into football.
They got everything right over there.
Well, yes, we will be, I guess, a little overview of the podcast. We'll be dropping episodes for you every Friday, hopefully right about midday. We will be a bi-weekly podcast. I say Friday, but we're going to be recording a little early for you. This is a Wednesday night podcast, so if there's anything crazy, anything fun happening on Thursday, we will miss it. We'll have to talk about it next time. But I'm excited to get into it. You ready to talk about some head coaches?
Let's do it.
Well, my favorite team, I'm just kidding. I'm a Colts fan. This is my least favorite team, so we're going to rip this Band-Aid off, and why don't you introduce our new Patriots head coach for us?
The new Patriots head coach, Gerard Mayo, linebackers coach with the Pats from 2019 to 2023, but he also played with the Patriots from 2008 to 2015. So, I mean, he was a Bill Belichick guy through and through. They wanted to get rid of him, or they wanted to get rid of Belichick, and they hired a Belichick disciple. So it'll be interesting. I mean, he is one of the younger guys that he's ever had on his coaching staff, and I think he'll bring some juice. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the draft as well with new owner or with new head coaching philosophies and really whoever they decide is going to GM. So that's the.
You mean Gerard Mayo's not going to get just a full range here?
I wouldn't give him the full range just yet, but who knows?
Right.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think, like you said, it's like the sandwich. You know, mayo, you don't want to put it all over the place. You want to spread it evenly. Too much, and it just ruins the whole thing, kind of like Belichick was doing there at the end. But no, I'm excited. It's this is a regime I've only ever seen Belichick and the Patriots. All the football I've ever watched. So this is a new year for me. I've never not seen Brady or Bill Belichick in the NFL. So this is a whole new. Like I said, as a Colts fan, I'm excited. I'm super stoked not to have those two in this year. But I can't wait to see what we can do because what do they have, the 3rd overall pick this year? We've got to do some sort of big splash with that.
You would think so, and I don't buy 1 second. My favorite team is the Vikings. I was seeing some of those rumors that we were going to trade Justin Jefferson and 2 of our first-round picks for the 103, and I said, not a chance. Stop reading that kind of stuff. So
we get bored in the off season.
We definitely do, and Patriots fans can sometimes be delusional. So that was definitely made from a Patriots fan because you're not getting down to the 11th pick and getting J.J. McCarthy and Justin Jefferson. Let's just stop.
No, 100%.
What about the next guy on our list here?
Well, another young one and another recent player. We have Antonio Pierce, last year's linebacker coach for the Las Vegas Raiders, but took over as the interim head coach. And he won a handful of games. He sparked something in those players. This is definitely a kind of like what we saw in Tennessee with Vrabel. This is a player's coach. This is a guy who translates well to those, the players out there on the field. And I don't know. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for what he can do, but it's the Raiders. Like, how much excitement can you truly have? They've been on such a downturn since, really Gruden.
Yeah, I think I do like that they hired Tom Telesco as their GM as well. And I think the biggest problem with Telesco is he kept hiring analytical guys in LA. So I think having a coach, or a player's coach as his head coach, I think is going to be better or bode well for him. I mean, Antonio Pierce was a madman when he played linebacker for the Giants all those years ago. And I mean, after the first or second game, they're smoking cigars in the locker room after Josh McDaniels is gone. That's got to add up to something. So, I mean, like you say, the Raiders really haven't done much really since Gannon was there and all that stuff in 0203, but it seems like that sometimes they just get some good fortune, and I think if they find a quarterback, that's the biggest question mark right there, right? For the Raiders and the
100%.
quarterback. So if they get one, maybe Kirk Cousins, maybe Russell Wilson, I think they could actually be a pretty decent team, but they're also in the hardest division. So that's also,
And they were flirting with Cliff Kingsbury was almost there as the OC right before he pulled out a couple of days ago.
which is what scares me as well, right? Because if they're still pulling those kind of antics, because I guess what I've been reading is every assistant or every coordinator gets like a 3-year deal, and they were only offering them 2.
Ooh.
So something like that happened. So it's like, so maybe it wasn't just the coach and GM, maybe it is upper management, but we'll see. We'll figure it out.
Maybe Vegas is just looking at Pierce as temporary. They're just gonna, roster turn over the next couple of years and get a few more first round picks and try over again.
For sure.
Oh, gross. Well, speaking of a gross franchise, let's go to a Colts rival in the Tennessee Titans. I'm sorry, folks. There won't be too much bias here, but just a little bit. Brian Callahan coming over from the Bengals unit. He was the OC for the last, 4 years, since 2019. Raiders QB coach prior to that, and the Lions QB coach back in 2016 and 17. So a offensive mind they're bringing in here, a definite change than the Vrabel years. Do you think this is going to save the, I guess what will be the second year Levis coming in?
I think it'll help because Brian Callahan was a major implication for Joe Burrow coming in and stuff like that. Because the head coach for the Bengals, Zach Taylor, he called all the plays. So this will be the first time Callahan is calling the plays in a while. So
Not a Zach Taylor fan.
I'm not either, but he still calls the plays, right?
For
So
sure.
I think Callahan can build the quarterback that he needs, and we'll find out if he likes Levis or not. I think they wouldn't have hired him if he didn't. He must have had a pretty good pitch to the ownership about that. So I think he'll be good. He already brought in his dad to be defensive coordinator too. So, and he's been in the league for forever. So that it's just, and I think Bill Callahan was a coach. Can't remember, but I think he was. So I mean, even with that, that's a big get for him because then he's going to have his dad there to help him out a little bit, even just being a coach in the league for how long. So
100%. And then Callahan being to, what's it, McVay is where Zach Taylor came from, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
it's all that same tree. Yep.
So I guess the biggest thing with the Titans right now, we saw Derrick Henry say his goodbye. He's most likely out of there. My biggest question for this whole offense, can we save Treylon Burks? We're going into year 3. We've got, top 15 draft capital in him. Couldn't stay on the field this past year. Do we get to see anything great from him? Is he just gone? Or do we give him that last chance here in Dynasty in year 3?
I'm definitely giving him one last chance for sure because he's a really easy buy. I'm not really giving up much capital to get him right now, and I think he's a good home run threat that I can throw out a third and try to get for. Now, it all depends on the manager that has him, right? If they're already
100%.
fed up and sick of him because they drafted him at 104, you're probably going to get a good bang for your buck. But the people that got him at 107, 108, they're like, well, I'll just hold out. So it really depends on how long your dynasty league has been going and what the mindset of that manager is doing. Are they rebuilding? Are they going for it all? That all depends. So, but I'm always throwing offers out on some of those players. So I'm definitely throwing it out on Traylon Burks because I think even if Hopkins stays, Traylon Burks is a prime wide receiver too, in my opinion. And I think this could be the reset they needed.
Look, I'm a huge fan. I want to love him, but gosh, I'm getting Elijah Moore flashbacks from last offseason. That's what I was saying,
True.
Second year, change pace going into the Browns, and he just did not produce for me. So I'm holding out hope. Like you said, it's all about that price tag, but Burks would be somebody I'd be flirting with this offseason to see.
Elijah Moore came through when Joe Flacco came in. So he started to come through a little bit. Not too much, but he started coming on a little bit. So man. It'll be interesting. But the next head coach that we're probably going to talk about, and I mean, it was the biggest, most headline worthy, right, was the Chargers head coach, Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, just won a national championship with Michigan. But he was there since 2015, which I forgot he was at Michigan there for so long.
Right, and then you almost kind of gave up hope on him coming to the NFL.
Exactly. And when he was the 49ers head coach from 2011 to 2014, he had that amazing Super Bowl run and played against his brother as a head coach in that as well. And then he was at Stanford head coach from 2007 to 2010. So the biggest question is he going to draft Blake Corum way too high? Because if he drafts Blake Corum, I'm buying him in every rookie draft I can. But if he doesn't go there, I'm not touching him.
Yeah, I've already seen him pumping up rainbows up his backside all over on the media right now. So I don't know. I'm hoping they limit how much rain they give Jim out there, but the Chargers are serious. It seems like they're tired of just, pissing away Phillip Rivers and his career, and now they struck gold again. They pulled out Herbert out of what seemingly was nowhere, and now we're going into contract 2 for Herbert, and we have to make something happen. So I'm excited. Yeah. All I'm seeing right now is how much Jim Harbaugh runs at Michigan, how much he did with Kaepernick and the Niners, and even with Luck and Stanford. So I guess that's my big worry is here. Like I thought, oh my gosh, we're gonna open the floodgates. Here goes Herbert, but I don't know. Maybe he's gonna be dialed back. This might be a little bit more run base, which
I think that actually might benefit Herbert a little bit because the last 2 seasons, what has happened to him? He's been getting sacked way too much. And he does have some wheels on him to run, but that's not what he wants to do. He wants to be a pocket passer. So I think if they can open up the run game for the play action game, that's where Herbert's going to excel. And I mean, the window is now for Keenan Allen, obviously, because he's on the downturn of his career.
That window's closing.
Yeah, so it's like we got to do something with him right now. So I think a different type of offense like that will help, and I think that actually benefits the defense, the defensive build that they have too. Khalil Mack and Derwin James, they don't necessarily need to score 30 points to Chargers because their defense should be good enough to not give up 20.
That will be interesting. They're in some cap hell going into this offseason, so
Khalil
Mack may be a casualty. But I'm excited. I think this team is looking good. It's not going to be the juggernaut division that we thought it was going to be just 2 years ago when Russell Wilson came to town and Herbert and Mahomes. But I think a nice Chargers and Chiefs battle out. I see both these teams hopefully being, playoff teams the next few years. But I'm excited. Hoping we're seeing a little bit more competency out of the Chargers.
I agree. I hope so too.
Well, speaking of a place where there's no hope, let's head to Carolina, because if they didn't trade everything away for Bryce Young, who just came up short, is that too mean? But yeah, Panthers picked up Frank Wright on a fresh 5-year deal going into the season, and Did he make it 5 weeks? Just barely, because they kicked him out of town, but they're bringing in the OC from Tampa Bay, Dave Canales.
I like the hire, especially with Bryce Young as your quarterback. Look what I mean, and it's recency biased, but still, like, look what Canales did for Baker Mayfield. He rejuvenated his career, and now he's probably going to get a $90 million contract this offseason.
Geno Smith the year before.
And Geno Smith the year before. So, I mean, it's just, if someone's going to make it right, I think it's Bryce Young. And I just saw C.J. Stroud coming to bat for Bryce Young and saying, like, he didn't have weapons or a good team build like I did. So it's like, he's the 101 for a reason. And I was like, I mean, that's going to make C.J. Stroud look good, but I still believe in Bryce Young as well. And I don't think his size really is an issue, because I think he still has it between the ears, as long as this last year didn't really mess him up that much. So I'm glad they have a new, fresh take on GM and coach, just so then they can really tether it down.
100%. And I think the nice thing it'll be is we're going in low expectations. You know, they're not having their first round pick because of this. It's going to be a hard road for them, but like you said, I think if anybody can come in here and do it, I think they're going to set up Bryce pretty well. They've got a decent amount of money this offseason. Maybe they can bring in a T. Higgins.
Exactly who I was just thinking of.
Michael Pittman, if for some reason he slips out of Indy. Give him a big-bodied receiver, somebody who can really, reach and get those balls that maybe they're not as accurate as we're going to hope from a Bryce Young, because this offensive line is near trash, because he's running for his life. Let's set the kid up for a little bit more confidence. So I'm excited. I actually think, we're going to talk about it a little later, but as far as offseason buys and sells, this guy's price is down as low as it's going to be. So, it can only go up, right? Maybe not his height, but his stock, for sure. It can go up still.
Yeah, for sure. And it is funny, because I was going to bring up T. Higgins, so you read my mind, because I think that's the type of build of wide receiver they don't have right now. Mm-hmm. You have a deep threat in DJ Chark. You have the short game, intermediate game with Adam Thielen. You just need someone as a security blanket that's not the tight end, that can go up and just make a contested catch. And that's T. Higgins. And I think he would flourish, and I think he would be the Mike Evans to Baker Mayfield. I'm not calling him Mike Evans, but I think in that regard, if they used him that way, I think he would be pretty good.
100%. He's a touchdown guy. He's a down the field guy. I think he would slide perfectly into a situation like that.
And like you said, they have the cap room, so I hope they at least make a move for a wide receiver.
God, you'd hope so. Otherwise, Bryce Young, he's toast if not.
Yeah. Talk about another. Sorry, go ahead.
Go for it.
Oh, I was talking about another team that was toast last year was the Falcons, and their new coach is Raheem Morris. Actually, he was the interim head coach for Atlanta in 2020, and then became the Rams defensive coordinator from 2021 to 2023. And after 2020, he was in Atlanta in a variety of roles. What are your thoughts on the hire?
Honestly, I just wanted to be a fly on that wall for that interview. Welcome back, Mr. Morris. Here, you were gone, just a couple... Like, how does he take over as interim head coach? You dismiss him, but just a couple years later, come on back, let's try this again. Like, what in the world? Glad he got the job. It was awesome, but I don't know. I guess I just don't remember his the follow-up after he didn't get the head coaching job, but I'm definitely excited. We kind of touched on the Sean McVay tree earlier, and that's exactly where he's coming from. So hopefully we get some explosion in this Atlanta offense.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, it takes a special type of person to go back to where it kind of started in your head coaching career. It's kind of like if Vance Joseph went back to the Denver to coach again. Yeah. And I'd just be like, God, that was a sour taste, it seemed like. But apparently it wasn't. But like you said, Arthur Smith, he is good offensive coordinator, but he's not a good head coach. And I think Morris, like you said, he was a McVay guy, so he knows how to run the building. And I think that's where he might have been lacking. Because now in the interview process, they said they were blown away by Morris. And it's like, he already knows all these people, so he wasn't going to fire anyone. So I think that felt like a sense of protection as well to a lot of the guys in that office. So I like the hiring, like you said. hopefully we can get some high flying because they got so many weapons that they just need to find a quarterback, like a lot
Yeah,
of other teams.
which is I feel like something we keep bypassing.
Yes.
There's talks of Drake London being a great buy this offseason. Kyle Pitts is somebody who can probably be picked up from some scoring managers over the last few years. But if we don't address this quarterback situation, it really doesn't matter because what we watched how that happen. I was so excited for Taylor Heineke. I was so down on Ritter. And when I saw Ritter go down and like it swapped out, I was so excited. I'm like, I was right. And then Heineke started playing again. I was like, but I forgot who I was supporting. It was a lost clause either way.
Yeah.
So maybe Kirk Cousins finds his way if they don't find a way to make ends meet up there in Minnesota. Maybe he comes down. I think might be one of our best shots. Russell Wilson if he leaves Denver. I think Justin Fields is the most exciting quarterback that I've heard head that way.
Go back home for Justin Fields. That'd be big. I think, but yeah, I mean, I was a big Desmond Ritter guy last year as well. So it's like it's hard for me to admit that I was wrong, but I was. So
hey, 5th-round quarterbacks, they'll do it to you.
Yep, exactly. So,
but yeah, I do like that. I saw that Raheem Morris brought over the quarterback coach from the Rams as well with him.
Oh, okay, nice.
So just as far as a franchise that we've seen traditionally hand it to one running back, as we saw. Oh my gosh, Kyron Williams this past year, Gurley. So hopefully that'll mean Tyler Algier, hold that water bottle, keep it nice and cool, because Bijan's going to be nonstop on the field.
I hope so. We will find out. Next quarterback on the list. I know we were going back and forth, but I'll just take this one as well. Seattle Seahawks, Mike McDonald. He was the Baltimore defensive coordinator from 2022 to 2023. And he was also the Michigan defensive coordinator in 21. And from 2017 to 2020, he was the defensive backs and linebackers coach for Baltimore as well.
So we're just going to call this guy Mike Harbaugh? Is that what we're doing here?
Maybe. I mean,
that's all he does is hang out with them.
Yeah, he always likes to hang out with them, but now he is the guy, and he's the youngest now. Finally, McVay can't say that he's the youngest head coach, and I think he's very happy to give that title up. What are your thoughts on Mike McDonald?
I'm excited for the youth. Like you said, going from the oldest head coach in Pete Carroll to the youngest here in Mike McDonald. I'm loving it.
They have their head coach's age.
It's so bizarre. Like, the fact that this guy's only a few years older than me, like, what's he doing with his life?
No doubt. Oh, I agree totally.
Oh, sad.
No, I think he's a big aspect, especially for the Seahawks defense if you play any IDP leagues, because, I mean, Wagner is obviously an IDP stud. They have what McDonald excelled at is the secondary, and the Seahawks are already built with a good secondary. So I'm excited to see if they buy in and who buys in that secondary to see if they can thrive. And yeah, I'm excited to see it. I mean, we'll see if they also go a young quarterback. I might not be completely sold on Geno, but he's a good bridge quarterback. He definitely will start the season, but he might not end it. So they have two running backs as well, and obviously the wide receivers are what they are. They have JSN, they have DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. So, yeah, I mean, if they can get a young guy that can sling it and not be as injury-prone or inaccurate as Geno Smith, I would go with that guy.
Yeah, I think they're in a nice position here. Geno signed a 3-year deal going into this 2023 season, so after the 2024, they should be able to get rid of him without too many cap casualties there. But I think the Seahawks picking a little later, we have a lot of quarterbacks in this draft that are not quite that elite. They're, good, not great. So I think we're going to see some maybe later end first round quarterbacks go, maybe early day 2, maybe some trading up there early day 2. But a hometown guy, I'm going to struggle saying his name, Penix, the next at the end, coming out of Washington. I think he is a guy that could, easily slide into those later round picks and, sit behind Geno for a year. Even though he's probably just as old as Geno. I need to confirm those ages, but it is pretty close.
Yeah, Penix is going to be good. I think he'd be good in that spot. And another one that is just coming, I think Michael Pratt would be really good there as well. I mean, I saw some reports saying that the Broncos were looking at him, and I was like, why would they be looking at Pratt? Because he's pretty much a reincarnated Russell Wilson. So I think without some of that other, Mr. Unlimited stuff, I think Michael Pratt could be a good good quarterback. I think he's a little bit more gifted with arm talent, even though he can duck some of the deep throws. But DK really doesn't need to be the deep threat. As long as you get him the ball, he's going to make magic happen.
100%.
And I think they might go quarterback in the first round. They're going to go best player available, but if they don't like anyone, I think they do go that quarterback, so then they can get the fifth-year option. I think we're going to see, like you said, there's a few guys on the cusp there that I think they might want to get the fifth-year option on, so we might have a little run at the end of that.
Yeah, kind of how Lamar squeaked out there, that 32nd pick. Just, let's tackle on that fifth year just in case we don't see where we're going.
Exactly.
Especially for a guy that's sitting behind an extra year, Jordan Love, we saw, great example of that.
Yep.
Oh, well, it's a little rainy up here. Let's move this conversation down to a warmer city. No, horrible transition. But heading to D.C., the Commanders. We've got new ownership there. They're ready to spend some money. And Dan Quinn, their third option is coming to town to take over as head coach because Bobby Slowick didn't want to leave, and neither did our boy up in Detroit. Ben Johnson, the easiest name ever that is just escaping me every day.
Yep.
But Dan Quinn, we've seen him as the defensive coordinator for Seattle back in their heyday, the Super Bowl runs. Head coach down in Atlanta, was a part of that Super Bowl slip-up. And, of course, the D.C. and Dallas for the last several years, holding on to great draft capital. And I don't know. I'm not really excited. I feel like I should be. We've got two great wide receivers, or holding out for Dotson. I think he should be good. I think we've got great offensive pieces, good offensive pieces. Number 2 overall pick. Defense they had some studs. Deron Payne's still there.
I like it because, like you said, he was the Atlanta head coach when they had the Super Bowl slip up, but who was his offensive coordinator there?
Mr. Shenanigans.
And who's kind of he's not part of the Shanahan tree, but he's a lot like that in OC work, and that's Cliff Kingsbury, who is now the OC there. I think Dan Quinn is going to get the defense on point. That's what they need to do. That's what really held them back, and I think they're going to be playing at a way more elite level next year. And then he's just going to let Cliff Kingsbury do what he does best, and that's coach the offense. And with Kingsbury, I really like Curtis Samuel again. And like you said, I'm really holding out hope for Dotson because I think he is a really good wide receiver 2 option. McLaurin is who he is, but he also has probably had the most unlucky quarterback play ever. So, and we know how good he is, but it's just hard to keep him in a dynasty sometimes. But I do have him in a
especially with his age too.
Yeah, yep, exactly. But I really hope they go Jaden Daniels because I think how dynamic and versatile Jaden Daniels is, he could really open up that offense, and he would make Brian Robinson look good. He would make whatever other running back they could bring in because I don't think they're bringing Gibson back. Just think if they did a better Gibson and signed Eckler, I would love that. So I'm just like, there's a bunch of different ways that you can make this offensive explosive, and Kingsbury could do that.
And he can just copy and paste exactly what he had in Arizona.
Yeah.
Take over that mobile quarterback offense that he had. They're going to be top 8, probably top 5 in pace of play, which is good for those receivers. Sometimes I think it was the volume was the issue because we're spreading it around to Curtis Samuel, Dotson, McLaurin. Logan Thomas is getting in the mix. Maybe even a Cole Turner, who we may talk about here in a little bit.
Let's do it. I love Cole Turner.
But I think there's a lot of excitement here. I think it's just the blunder of the head coach grab was just so. It's the number 2 pick. You really thought that we were going to bring in some happiness and good vibes, but I just feel like we got Ron Rivera 2.0.
I hope not, but I do like that he stayed in division, and I have a lot of friends that are Cowboys fans, so I've been really laying it on him about that. That and they got their defensive coordinator taken, and then you're going to take up their washed-up head coach as their defensive coordinator. So I'm hoping that's the case, and I've been having a little bit of fun with that.
They'll be splitting the season for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll wrap up. That'll wrap up the coaches. We'll head to a little buy and sell. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Whoop, whoop. Alrighty, we have, as we said, this is just before the Super Bowl we're recording this, so free agency, it hasn't gone bonkers yet, but for all of you crazy Dynasty people out there, it's still we still have to make some moves. You know, draft picks, they're only gaining value, so maybe we don't necessarily want to give those up too much, but maybe there's a handful of players we want to grab because just maybe they're low risk. You know, the chances of free agency, of their status changing, you know, those capabilities are only going to go up. So today we're going to break down a handful of players that we think we should grab, a handful maybe we should look at selling. What do you have for your first player for us, Cody?
Oh, we talked about him a little bit, or I guess we talked about his team a little bit. My first buy for the offseason is Quentin Johnston, and it's kind of just in regards to after Keenan Allen, who is it going to be? Well, Mike Williams is probably not coming back. I mean, with how significant some of his injuries have been and how much money they paid him, I could see him as a cap casualty pretty easily. And, I mean, you're having the fifth-year option on Quentin Johnson. You're going to be paying him next to nothing, maybe, $770,000 this year? If he's not going to do it now, when is he going to do it? And even though, like, I also make it a buy because of what happened with the rookie class last year. You have Jordan Addison, who played pretty good. You have JSN, who played really good. You have Tank Dell and all these other receivers that outperformed him. And he had and Zay Flowers and all them, you know. But he has the draft capital, but I think people are already writing him off. So if I can throw out a second-round pick and someone snatches that up, I'm pretty excited because he was a first-round pick last year. A lot of people had him as the Dynasty wide receiver 1 last year. So there's obviously some potential there, but I'm really excited for him. And like you said, you don't want to give up some of these picks, but, you know, I think a second-round pick, do you want to get a high-risk wide receiver, or do you want to get maybe the second-string running back? So I'm going to probably go for the high-risk wide receiver for another flex spot and try to make sure that I fill my flex spots, especially in half-point PPR. I'm going to be trying to fill that up with 5 wide receivers.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing for everybody to remember. As exciting as having these picks are and making these picks, most of them don't amount to anything. You know, especially the second-round picks. Like, the hit rate is less than 50% on these picks. So if you think that there is a more than 50% chance on Quentin Johnston actually turning into something, even if it's just a wide receiver 3 for your team, well, if you think that's more than 50%, odds are you should probably go with that over that second-round pick, you know, which could be anything. You may be at the point looking at your draft where you're taking some running back. This is not a great running back class here, folks. It may turn around, may be better, but, you know, that may not be what you want to be spending your pick on. So, yeah, I don't hate it. I think there's a handful of these rookies that, for the right price, I think they should be obtained.
For sure. And who do you have as your first buy?
Well, I'll kind of segue into another, going into his second season, Trey Palmer. Really, I think this could be any of the Buccaneers wide receivers. I think there's an argument for all of them. But Trey Palmer, he showed that he's got the stuff. He can fill into that almost said Mike Williams. We just got off the Chargers. Mike Evans role. You know, he's a big speedster. He can go down there, go get the ball. We saw that from him here in the back part of the season. But Mike Evans could be hitting free agency. This offense, we're probably going to see Baker Mayfield coming back because the Bucs really don't have much of another option. So if you're able to flip Trey Palmer, maybe a early third round pick, flip him maybe for a Lockett. You know, maybe you've got some of these teams that are making that change from, hey, I'm no longer a contender, trying to get rid of some of these older pieces. You know, getting rid of a Mike Williams or a Lockett to get this young Trey Palmer, I think that's a great buy that you could go for this time of season.
I love me some Trey Palmer. And it's just, yeah, I mean, again, you can probably get a deep threat that might get you a touchdown every week. That's that might be the better play than just having that third running back as your flex that might just get you 60 yards. Yeah, he had 18, 20 touches, but he hasn't done anything else. Just gets some yards. It's running back and tight end positions in fantasy are becoming almost obsolete now just because of how the offenses are being run. So, I mean, you have some teams like you have the elite running backs where if you can get them, get them. But they're becoming fewer and more far in between. So it just, load up
those
on
bell
wide
cows are
receivers.
going away.
Yeah. So that's why I would just say my next buy would be Drake London. I know we still have question marks there with the wide receivers, but again, he was another, 1.05 first round pick 2 years ago. I'm looking at mid second or maybe even an early third based off of how many people were, or how many people are giving up on him. And you know what? I would even throw in like a Damian Pierce because maybe that person is like, I'm on the fence with the early third. I throw in Damian Pierce, and then that's where we want to go. Because I don't think Damian Pierce is going to be coming back at all either. So I'm trying to get him off my team as much as I can. And I like going for second and third year guys because now the draft capital has kind of simmered off, and some of those fantasy players are starting to give up on them, and that's when I like to pounce.
Definitely. I think you're fresh enough in that time where that frustration's starting to sit.
Yep.
You know, they took him early first round. All right, maybe I should be able to play him as a regular piece year 2. Well, you know, now we're going into year 3. If it's a rookie quarterbacks traditionally do not hold up, you know, a good wide receiver 1. I mean, CJ Stroud, so don't listen to that completely. But, you know, traditionally, we're not going to see that. So if Drake London's got a rookie quarterback coming in, he may be in for another hard year. So if you're able to sell that and pick him up, this is a guy who's seen 110 targets his first 2 seasons. He is only 22 years old. It's a great snag. If you're you're coming into your contending window, you're coming out of your rebuild, this is an amazing piece, I feel like, to build around your wide receiver core as far as like a cornerstone piece.
Agreed. Who's your next buy?
My next buy.
Your next buys because I only made 2 of the buys. So.
I guess I try to go for, again, we don't want to necessarily. I don't want to swing too hard this time of season. A lot is about to change over the next month, over the next 2 months. But these are James Conner, somebody who I don't think he's going to see a lot of change. He's got 1 more year left on his deal. It's a decent amount of money. I think he's right around that $8 million hump, so it's not too much for Arizona. They shouldn't be spending capital on a running back. We're not going to see first round picks most likely going to a wide receiver. You know, this draft isn't one where we have a lot of running backs, so why wouldn't they roll the dice? Take it back to him. Let's fill up this receiving core for Kyler. He has been great at the red zone. I think he was top 3, top 5 again in red zone attempts. So I think James Conner, there's not a lot of flash to his name. He's been going at it for a while. People are ready to move on from him. You're buying this asset to die on your roster, but if you're able to toss, an early third, maybe 2/3, a late second, something like that, you can snag him onto your team. I think he's great for a contender, for a team that's looking for a little bit of depth at the position.
I think the other buy on your list in Chuba Hubbard is almost the exact same. In regards, Hubbard's a lot younger, but I don't think there's going to be much change in that backfield because I don't think they're going to invest in a running back. So Hubbard's going to be the guy with Sanders again. They're going to be a split backfield. But, I bought Connor last offseason and he won me one of the leagues, so he's dying on my roster because, you know what, he made me some money, and I appreciate that. So, if I could – and I spent I think I spent 2/3 on him to acquire him last offseason. So, I don't think his value's really risen, but he's an effective option when you really need a flex play on some bye weeks. So I do like that.
And I think these are...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think these are great guys to kind of toss in on deals too.
Yep.
We're about to throw out some tight ends out there. And honestly, in just the way I've played, when I go after some of these late round players, I get shot down pretty easily, or that price gets hiked up because that person's like, all right, what do you know?
Yeah.
And what are you talking about? You call me an idiot all season, say I don't know anything, but when I go and try and get a piece of garbage off your roster, you don't so I think this is maybe, hey, if you're going after Drake London, a piece that's going to cost you a little bit more, maybe we go, all right, well, give me Drake London and toss in Chuba Hubbard or toss in James Conner, or maybe one of those tight ends you got down there, maybe a Brevin Jordan
Yeah.
who has Dalton Schultz leaving town, who looked great with CJ Stroud, a Bellinger from the Giants who may see. Oh my gosh, he hardly played this year. I can't even think of his name. Tight end up there in
Darren
New
Waller.
York. Darren Waller. There we go. See, that's why we pay Cody the big bucks here. Or even a Cole Turner, who I'll let you sing his praises. But as a Washington tight end, Logan Thomas leaving town, what kind of goodness we have coming our way?
I love Cole Turner so much, and I watched a lot of rookie tape / college tape to see the upcoming rookies, and I started watching some. What was their quarterback? The quarterback for Nevada a few years ago, and I was like, man, this guy is not good, but his receiver and his tight end are saving him. So it was Carson Strong. There it is. Just
there we go. I was going too
But
back.
it was more of a, man, this receiver and tight end are just saving him. They just can track the ball well, they high point the ball, and they have contested catches, but because all of these balls are sailing over their head. And those two guys were Romeo Doubs and Cole Turner. Cole Turner is athletic. Ron Rivera, after drafting him, called him a young Greg Olson, and then he didn't use him like Greg Olson, which I was very. Ron Rivera can just, not be a head coach anymore, please. But he has athleticism that if he is used right and not like an inline tight end, Cole Turner is a tight end position dream in fantasy. If you use him more like
240.
Yeah, if you use him more like Evan Ingram and not like a George Kittle, where you're just having him block and then release, if you just have him in the slot, he's gonna win.
And we're seeing these new, breakouts. We'll call them, these breakouts of these younger tight ends, whereas usually we're seeing it later into their career in their 4th, 5th, and 6th season. Cole Turner's coming into his 3rd season. He's had to sit quietly behind Logan Thomas, who has been on and off the field. So I think with a number 2 overall quarterback coming in, tight ends are that's the bread and butter there with those rookie quarterbacks. They love to dump it off those guys a little closer then. So yeah, I think Cole Turner could be for a decent target share this season.
So we've had all the ups. What about the downs? Who's your first sell of the year?
Well, so this is one of my favorite wide receivers that's come out in several years. I just want to preface it with that. So this is not me hating on him. This is going to be a huge buy, I feel like, for me for next offseason. But I think Jackson Smith and Jigba has another year ahead of him. Yep. I don't see us moving on from Lockett. Obviously, DK's not leaving there. So the fact is, he's going to be splitting between those 3. I'm sure we're going to see an increased role. He's going to be playing a little bit more, doing a lot more, but I think he's going to be capped. And unless Geno has another outlier season, Geno might not. We were just talking about he might not finish the season. So I think with all of that, it's just going to be stacked against him. Where JSN is going to be probably a wide receiver 3 this next season, with maybe a couple boomer bust games, but nothing that I'm going to want to spend draft capital to go obtain this offseason. And maybe go grab a guy like T. Higgins, a Michael Pittman. Recently, I just did a startup draft where he went right around where the 105 went. So if you can get maybe just above that 106 cusp in the rookie draft, I think I'd go for it this season and try and retain as much value as you can for him.
I agree, and I think that's why I also had Quentin Johnson as the biggest buy for those second-year wide receivers coming in, because he's the only one with a clear path to a wide receiver 1. Addison's going to be the wide receiver 2 in Minnesota for forever. Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to be the wide receiver 2 or 3 this season, and I don't really see him eclipsing DK Metcalf anytime soon either. So it's like, can you have a T. Higgins where they can maintain 2 wide receiver 1s in fantasy? I don't know. He's not going to do it this year, so I agree with you. I think he's a massive sell. And I think
especially with that running game too.
Yeah, I mean, they have 2 good running backs as well, and who knows what the defensive head coach is going to do. I don't know. Have they named who their offensive coordinator is going to be? Because that could be a big aspect as well. But
especially coming out of Baltimore, where they run the ball, they run the ball, they run the ball.
they're methodical. So that might hurt JSN a little bit as well, because who's going to be the safety blanket? It's going to be Lockett. But I think another sell that I have, it might be because Arthur Smith is the new offensive coordinator. I think that might be a big aspect of it, but it's George Pickens. I haven't really ever been high on George Pickens because he's always had a me attitude and not a we attitude. And in football, that kind of doesn't work. And I mean, some of the comments he made, like, I don't block because look what happened to Tank. I don't really like that comment either, because like
Tank's 5'4". Of course he got rolled up on.
And he got rolled up on blocking for his teammate to score. But whatever. It's just I'm sick of George Pickens. And especially in fantasy too, because he is so boom and bust that there's enough boom there that I think you could get a late first, early second round pick out of him, and I would be snatching that up because he's probably good in the flex that you want him. That's where you want him, but can I get a younger option? And in that late first, you're going to have the Adonai Mitchells, and you're going to have maybe the first running back coming off the board and stuff like that. Maybe even one of the later quarterbacks, the mid-round quarterbacks that we want. There's just a little bit more value, I think, in the late first, early second than that I'm willing to give up George Pickens for.
I'm right there with you. I picked him up rookie drafts in a couple of leagues, and I've been moving to sell him since mid-season this past year. It's not an analytically based something that you can see with his attitude and how he is, but it's just something I don't want to deal with. I'm not even a GM, I'm not even a coach. I'm a fantasy GM, and I don't want to have to deal with that on my roster. So there's tons of people that are just drooling over, just enamored with the physical ability that he has, the way he can break off plays. Let them jump on that hype. Let them try and find those spike weeks for him, because he's going to disappear. And if they, roll the dice again with another rookie quarterback, we're in for frustrations for another couple of years for him. So,
and I mean, I don't want to be a Bash Pickens podcast, but
let's do it.
They love his contested catch, but why is he always in contested catches? Because he can't separate. He never has been able to, and his route running is subpar at best. I don't know why he just doesn't watch Deontay Johnson, because he's always wide open. And why is he wide open? Because he's a good route runner. And he puts work in his lower half of his body to create fakes, so DBs get some separation off of him, because they...
And Deontay's got at least one more... he's got 2 years left on his deal, but he'll be there for at least one more season before they move on from him. So, George Pickens, this isn't going to be his year, so he's definitely a sell for me as well. Well, I don't want to keep bashing on rookies, but I got to throw these guys out there. Jonathan Mingo, talk about second-year guys who could be the guy. This dude could be the guy. He's fighting out Adam Thielen when he gets out of Denny's from his 55% off, his senior citizen discount days. But, outside of that, he's really not fighting anybody for targets. So Mingo should do great. Wrong. This guy had less, I think it was 0.81 yards per route run, which is right on that cusp of where you don't want to have guys. He had plenty of opportunity. We're going to give him one more year, of course, because we need to give Bryce Young one more year. But this is a guy that I'm willing to just cut bait with. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I can get anything for Mingo right now, I'm willing to trade on from him.
I think you're right, but I'm actually with Mingo. It kind of reminds me a lot like Jalen Tolbert with Dallas. I think they were just asking a little bit too much out of him his first year, so he just got overwhelmed, and then he kind of just fell. They just kind of gave up on him, but they just needed him to develop. And then you saw later in the year, this year, that Tolbert is finally coming together and becoming a good wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
But wide receiver 3 right now isn't going to cut it. So, I think I'm going to sell right now and then down the line get him back. Who's the other wide receiver?
The other one, look, this has nothing to do with talent. As a home fan, I love the Colts. Josh Downs was a steal. Loved that we got him in the 3rd round. And this has nothing to do with NFL. It has everything to do with fantasy. I think that Josh Downs is just not the guy for the fantasy team. But Josh Downs, I think he's just a product of Gardner Minshew coming in. Pittman's always going to be the number 1 there. So he's always going to be obviously the second wide receiver there at best. Jonathan Taylor catches passes. We have 4 tight ends that are running out of there that are catching balls. You still have Alec Pierce, who's out there as the deep passer. And then Anthony Richardson, as we saw in the 2.5 games that we saw him in, he's going to run the ball in. So there's going to be limited opportunity for Josh Downs. And I just don't ever want to be playing, I guess, with a pie that's going to be that small. His piece may be, I think he had an 18% target share, which is great. It's awesome to see from a rookie, but we're going to be changing the game plan drastically. We're going to be way more RPOs, and he wasn't out there in 2 wide receiver sets. It was a lot of slot play for him, so I just think that there's a lot of hype on him right now, and there's a lot of people that do love the talent, so I think that's just something that should be capitalized on.
Interesting. I agree with you. I think that's where my other 2 cells are kind of in that same boat. I think there's too many pieces of the pie for me to like them a lot. So, and another reason is I think they're both going to be sold really high. So, and I don't believe in them anymore. So I'm going to really try to get the most I can out of them. And that's Devin Achane and Kyron Williams. Unlike you, I think McVay doesn't know what he is doing with running backs because he infuriates me with that position. And without Todd Gurley, he hasn't really found anything. Now he's finally found something with Kyron Williams, and you know what he's going to do? He's probably going to start Zach Evans week 1 and just infuriate everyone because that's just what he does. And he's going to probably draft 2 of them as well. He's just infuriating me. I'm trying to sell as high as I can on Kyron Williams. And it's kind of the same with Achane. I don't hate Achane. I think he's a good back. But Mostert and Jeff Wilson aren't going to go anywhere, I don't think, because they were with Mike McDaniel in San Francisco. He believed in him then. He's still going to believe in him now. So there's always going to be 3 running backs going in that offense. So I think it's a good time to sell on him as well.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things with Devon Achane coming into the season or into the NFL was his durability. Like his talent wasn't being questioned. It was all about where is he going to play and how much is he going to play because can he withstand it? And I don't know if we want to, first season for him and Kyron really getting that workload. So maybe we don't want to label them as injury prone, but we saw both of them get hurt. And in Miami, we saw him get hurt multiple times. So I think it's just a lot of value to hold in something that could be out for a third of your season. So do you want to hold on to that and have one of these few, maybe they're not necessarily bell cows, but some of these top 5, guys that can hit that top 5, whereas there's other running backs that just don't even have that kind of ceiling? Or do you want to cash in on this value now, spread it around with, some Hubbard and James Conner, and then maybe turn it into a Drake London or something like that, and get some more some quality.
And I think
not quality, but
another big aspect is, are we talking about a super flex or a 1 QB league? Because in a super flex, I'm definitely selling them because if I can get the 105 or even the 107, I have a good chance of getting that second quarterback that I desperately need. Or a third one that I desperately need for bye week. So, and that's going to give me far more points than any of these 2 running backs can give me because I don't think Kyron Williams is going to have the production he had like last season because he's not a Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson. He's not one of the top tier guys that I would pay that price for. But someone's going to believe in it, and I'm going to try to benefit from it.
Yeah, I think that's the best approach for it right now because there are just running back, like the whole league, there's just too many question marks with the whole thing.
Yep.
I think we're looking at it's about all the buys and sells we have. We don't want to spoil you folks with too many now. We've got a long off season ahead of us. We're going to make sure we keep some for the next episode, but I'm pretty happy with what we've got out here so far. Shit, where's the outro?
You back?
Yep. You good?
I'm good. Yep.
Cuckoo. Awesome. Well, we can't thank you all enough for hanging out with us, talking a little Dynasty, going over some buys and sells. We hope you're a little bit more knowledgeable on the new coaching situation we have with all these rookie head coach, these new head coaching situations. Because Cody, you want to tell the people where you're at, what you got going on?
I'm exclusively at Dynasty Pros. I've been putting out some top 10 lists of the 2024 draft class. I have some guys higher on the list than some people like. And I'll spoil one for you. I really like Marshawn Lloyd. I have him as my running back 4. He's one of the older guys that I think is a good complementary back, and he blocks really well. So go and read that article if you would like. But I post all my articles at Dynasty Pros, and that's where exclusively I am at. But what about you, Brian?
Oh, where can't you find me these days? Sitting out on the corner. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I will be here helping out with this new podcast. You can also find me. I will be the QB List podcast. I'm also there if you can't get enough of me. I've got a movie podcast to come hang out with us. Ooh. Too Much Movie Night. But I think that's all we've got for today. I think we're ready to get out of here.
Perfect. I guess right before we get out of here, who do you have winning the Super Bowl?
I've got Patty Mahomes and the Chiefs. Let's get ring number 3, man.
I agree, and I have the over of 47.5. I think they're just going to get just over the over. I think it's going to be about a 28-24 game.
Fingers crossed. I'm hoping that's what happens. I bet under everywhere, but that's just because I'm prepared for the disappointment, you know?
There you go. Perfect.
Super Bowls. Well, folks, follow us everywhere. Check us out on Dynasty Pros YouTube. We'll be there. But until next time, we'll see you in 2 weeks.